Greetings, greetings. Hello, everyone. How you doing? Good to be back. Good to be back. And positive vibes. I hope everybody's doing well. Um, Strings, my friend, my partner in crime with these nights that we've been conversing with. He should be here soon. But I just thought, you know what? Let me just calm and initiate and somewhat set pace. Again, if you're hearing church bells, part of me is out of my control. These bloody bells. Most nights, this is what the bells do. As you know, I'm based in London, UK, south east to be precise. And this location is it's quite the a spot for churches, quite a few churches in the area. And around these times, there's a lot of bells in operation, so to speak. But hope you're doing well, and hope you're having a great week, even though it just started. I mean, it technically is Tuesday, but I like to think of everybody trying to have fun with it, though not necessarily the situation. We all go through things, but in case you are going through something, yeah, man, just pull through, just keep going, and make it happen for yourself, because at the end of the day, as they say, you only have one life, and you just got to keep pushing through. But of course, as I always encourage people to do, if there's anything going on that is relevant, or even if it's not, that you like to somewhat, just chime in, and of course, that's why the chat is live, and that's why that's partly why we'd like to have conversation, just to have people kind of share their views and their just to kind of create a community where we can converse and speak about situations that not only that we're going through, could be societal things, but also situations that people are experiencing themselves, because as they say, two brains, or multiple, two plus brains, better than one. Um, and when we congregate, being social creatures that we are our better selves, as they say, especially when it comes to solving issues, solving problems. So I would like to think that people understand that they're welcome to kind of chime in and share their ideals or their experiences, or whatever situation they might be going through, um, even if it's just to leave comments. And fair dues, because as I mentioned, I think previously, people have been giving their feedback, thoughts on topics, and it could be situations that they're going through also, which is always it's always positive to see what's going on. And you know um, as we continue to build, and we will keep building for sure, there is no stopping. So of course, this is something that I would like to see more of. And yeah, not necessarily goon, but chat rooms, being active, and people just sharing, what they're going through, or just giving feedback on topics and situations and whatnot. That's the ultimate goal at the end of the day. So, when it comes to what we do, I take this serious. And of course, it's derived from a passion of mine, which is, as I am a writer, poet, spoken word artist. Um, Funny enough, people don't really know. A lot of people might not necessarily guess, but I do write stories as well. But of course, this is a poetry platform, and so I normally just lead, keep the main thing, and just lead with this. And of course, this is more than a passion of mine. I was a poet first before anything to do with creative endeavors, writing, to be precise. So this is something that is near and dear and has been for a long time. So I have to. It's of no issue to sort of kind of lead with this and just have fun with it, man. Have fun with it. And I have to say, like, I am having fun with it. Absolutely, absolutely. And I encourage everyone to sort of kind of, I always try my best to encourage everyone to do that with your craft or whatever you decide to sort of kind of pursue. You got to have fun with it, man, because again, you can't turn back the clock. So it has got to be something that you can have fun with, have fun with for sure. So with that being said, um, the other thing I would like to share, speaking of having fun with it, on the poultry tip, of course, I've spoken about the last one, which was speaking books. The last book, which was this book. I'm not sure about if you haven't seen it before, but this is what it looks like, which is the one I published this year, and I'd like to put some links so people can go and see for themselves on Amazon. It is available on Amazon. Um, but scrolling back, this is the this is the first theme, which is, I'm not sure if you see the poetry journal on it. So this is the first theme I ever wrote. Now this is not technically the first, but I don't have any copies of the first on me. So this is the first, closest to the first is the first, closest to the first I have, which is poetry journal, Growing Pains. Now the first ever is actually called Poetry Journal, Dream, Imagine, Express. Now, if you've ever been on my website, um, or even had a purchase a book, a copy of my book, you'll always see things to do with like Dean or Dream, Imagine, Express, and that's because that that ideal of Dream, Imagine, Express is something I've always branded myself with, to do with creativity and what I do. And so me being the person I am creatively as specifically the mad poet is under the brand of Dream, Imagine, Express, which is sort of a representation of my website, which is Dean, which Dean is short for Dream, Imagine, Express Network. So yes, indeed, So that was the first one. Sorry, that was the second because I don't have the first on me. But following that one, we have this, which is the publishing from last year. This is the first poetry event, and that's when I introduced being a mad poet on the first on the book, and it was a proud moment. I felt good about it, and it was I was pretty pleased, and so this one is just I'd say if you're looking for whichever is more chaotic, I'd have to say this one. This one. Um, but some real stuff in there, and a lot of as you will tell with all my work. There's a lot of real stuff in them. So absolutely, absolutely. And like I said, it's been a journey. It's been a journey. So this book, or the last two, or the first two that I've shown you, man, they archives. They're archives, not just artwork, but they're also archives of where I've been, and ultimately where I am, or the most recent archive, sort of kind of scribing, you know, such and such is this, which is this was called Chaotic Ramblings. Ramblings of a Madman was the one published last year. And I've had book launches for these last two, which is Ramblings of a Madman and Chaotic Ramblings, speaking of poetry event theme. And man, I was really fortunate, that. But I consider myself fortunate, where people came and they supported, what I've been doing, and it's just been positive. It's been really positive, and I've really enjoyed the whole experience, and it's been a special time to say the least. So I can't really complain, man. It's a blessing, you could say. It's a blessing. Um, Let me just double check something while I'm here. But yes, indeed. Back to it. Let me introduce my guy.
Yes.
What's down those streaks?
Ah, man.
Yeah,
Crazy day. Crazy, crazy day. How are you, man?
for some reason I can't hear.
Oh,
Hold on, hold on. Say that again.
what about now?
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was me.
Yeah, nah. Ah, yeah, no, saying crazy day, man. Crazy day, but we're here.
As long as you're good, man. I know these days, man. They they uh they're on one these days. It gets like that, for real, for real.
How are you?
I'm good, man. Having fun with it as I do.
Yeah,
Um,
I heard the segment. And it's true.
you know what I mean? Getting it
Quality.
in, man. How you
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah, I'm cool. Just this time of year is usually what it feels like in London, but I feel it's just a lot of strong summary um, around, what I've been learning for the past few months. So, yeah, it's necessary for sure, but it
Oh,
takes
for
its toll
sure.
as well. Definitely takes its
Mm,
toll.
that's a whole fact.
Mm.
That's a whole fact. But as long as you're getting through and figuring it out, that's all you can do.
Yeah, no, always, always, always.
Take the good with the bad because that's just life, in my opinion. And you see what you're supposed to see,
Yeah,
because then you're sort of kind of controlling your own destiny, so to speak. That's what you can do, man. That's what you can do. And I would say that to everybody else. It's just like you see, yes, we are realists, but faith goes a long way as well.
further
You know?
than we know, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. If nothing else, faith in yourself. Man. Faith in yourself. Um, Strings, you ready for it?
Let's go.
All right. All right. So the piece for today. All right. It says. By the way, can you hear the bells?
Of course.
I was gonna say no. I was like, yeah.
No, whoa.
Never mind. The world is ablaze. What a shame. Killing time like stunted growth. Mouth feeling hoarse. I no longer have vocal cords. Freedom of speech is the timeless curse, growing worse by the second. The Salem horse. Ashes to ashes and dust to dust. A rusty feel. Carbon to heights as atmosphere proposed. Ill from merit imminent. There's no saving us. Once upon a time there was religion, thus even the hopeless hope, the other trust that was science. It made the trustless trust. The new force is pseudoscience, being forced down our throats. Society is no longer logical. I'm having my doom and gloom tonight.
Yeah, I caught that pseudo thing. What? Oh, that's how you feeling, mad.
Yeah, that's where we're going tonight.
Is society? What's this? I don't think society was ever meant to be logical, though.
Mm, that's an interesting take. Go, Script. Go, Script. Let me hear some more.
Like I look at the phrase and it's just like we're all meant to live in harmony, and it's like, nah, man. Like greatness was achieved in every time period, and there was still madness to compensate that. So when pyramids were being built, of the blood of who to what's it, the Iron Age to, yeah, like it was always greatness happening, but a lot of madness happening at the same time, which is why um I can understand why people really cherish history and always trying to look at what was undiscovered, um, to help paint the picture of what was. And essentially, some people are trying to ask themselves the question, what would life be like if they were existing at those times while that was going on? They'd still have to figure out who they are, um, within all that mess. So,
It's an interesting observation for sure because we speak about even the last time we spoke we speaking about internal reflecting external to a degree, and
mm,
if you think about society, what does that look like where everybody's if that's the case, well, imagine if everybody's internal is somewhat a reflection of their external, but on a mass scale. I mean, to me, that sounds like madness in itself.
Exactly.
Do you get what I mean? And it's somewhat it's com- a potential to heights that's combustible, which is
Yeah. Yeah.
chaos. It's even levels of chaos. Um, so it's crazy, and you know now if we're thinking about the power of I guess you could call it like somewhat the power of transmutation power.
Mm.
Speaking of our internal somewhat affecting our external, I think that just sort of kind of add further madness to the. And I'm saying people that are intentionally sort of trying to turn the world upside down, thereby there's a conviction to this transmutation situation that I'm speaking about. I mean, now we're going into heights of, you know, we're talking about anarchists at this point,
Yeah.
which is it's crazy, but this is the world we live in, and so much so to the point, and it's been such a factor that at this point it's become normal,
As
which
of
is
late, yeah.
amazing itself.
Yeah.
You know, like when you think about people walking into a place and just letting it rip with an AK in a public setting, man, I would like, you know, I think to a degree we would like to think that in what age would that be seen as normal? But I think we're living in that age right now. You get what I mean? It's crazy.
When you put it like that, I think the more it continues, yeah.
It's off the charts. It's off the charts. So, you know, these are some of the factors that somewhat came to mind when I was thinking about this. The representation of hope and the representation of trust. First, what does that mean to us? And how and what happens when that is flipped on its head? So now we're hopeless and now we're trustless. Isn't that further disparities
Yeah, for sure. Um,
between the two or the four? Four meaning you got the hope on one side, the hopeless on the other, the trust on one side, the trustless on the other. But they really come together to find a common ground. Like so I guess, you know, we'll start with the first question, and maybe we'll go around. What makes what makes people hope? What is hope?
ooh,
I could I'll look up the. We could start with the technical first.
yeah.
Let's look up the technical.
Yeah, I got some, but yeah. Let's wait. Let's see what Miriam
I got it
says.
here. Go on.
Uh, yeah, my take is I think it's the part of you that believes in anything being possible to further benefit your existence, but where the confusion really kicks in is what you've been fed as an individual from a very young age
Yeah.
on how to um, use it against you, so to speak. So I mentioned this in a piece I wrote a few months ago this year about how until that source is checked and heavily screened, then any form of positive possibilities you present to it, it will instinctively reject it. And one has to question, how can you um, be so quick to reject any kind of positive imagery in your mind over your life, but yet within the same breath you pray or hope for things to be better? It's a oxymoron. So um, hope is definitely that source within you that um, if you get it to be on your side, um, things can start working for you. Because when at first they say, oh, you surprise yourself, after a while you start to know what power that comes with, and thus you start to ask, you be more mindful of what you ask for. I think that's always a beautiful evolution with what people realize with how to get what they want. It's not about what anymore, it's why. Why are you asking for these things? Why do you want your life to be better? For you to do what with that?
You know, I remember mentioning, Carl Jung mentioning that, what's powerful about religion is the connection to the unconscious. And to that degree, I'm also alluding to the fact that hope is, in theory, at least hypothetically in my mind, could hope be somewhat of a subconscious and of an unconscious thing in itself, meaning pertaining to resilience, overcoming obstacles, finding ways to keep that silver lining, keep that positive specter of life within this vessel that we call a body,
Yeah,
to be something more than we can ever dream. Not necessarily in not necessarily factual, but at least in potential to be better than we were yesterday, at least. Climb. Life is a mountain after all, and it one step at a time. That's how you get to. That's how you walk 1,000 miles. One step at a time. And I think hope represents that one step at a time.
yeah,
You might not get there tomorrow, but you get there if you keep going. You know, that's that's along the line, and ultimately, you sort of kind of understand that whatever makes you that creature to either survive to begin with and eventually to graduate to a place where you're happy and you're in a space where you can elevate whatever that inkling, that initiation, that stimulus, that whatever that is, that frequency,
Mm.
it comes in different mediums. Sometimes, like we're saying, religiously speaking, I've heard a lot of people testimonial wise where it's all about a sign. I mean, we can even go movies where you Samuel Jackson said in what do they call it? Um, Pulp Fiction. My man came and let it rip across the stage,
Ah,
and
classic.
he got bullets through his shirt and all kind of stuff like that. But that not one of those actually pierced his skin. And although I do think that's a combination of the two. But at the same time, what did he point to? He point to um, a connection, a religious connection, a religious outlook. Being not really being a religious guy. In fact, he's so far from religion. But at the same time, it spoke to him, and perhaps that's hope, but also that's also the subconscious, and it also adds to the fact that what, this is interesting because you're thinking about
Oh,
the conscious, right, and what it's supposed to be, but then something like that happens, and it's like the dominant. Now we don't think of the unconscious as the dominant, but when you think about what happens, it's sort of like he reverts to basic instincts and just make an assumption in a sense where, and the reason why I'm mentioning this like this is because does that allude to his upbringing, his background? Just looking at the
uh,
deeper psyche of the person, the individual. Now, of course, we don't know, but at the same time, if he grew up, I think to me that's alluding to the character that he is. That somewhat perhaps he did grow up in a religious family, and obviously, just speaking on the character as a whole,
mhm.
we all know how religious um, African Americans are, and you could point to him just ad libbing or just just going off on one. Maybe he made that up himself, and yes, maybe that kind of just paint our picture even further in. But I suppose what I'm saying is just the character of the person, even though it's just a movie and he's playing a role. There's a conviction and there's a belief behind it, which is the reason why it makes it's the money. It's the reason why it makes so much sense and allude to who he is, but also allude to who he is on the inside. And I thought that was interesting. I thought that was interesting. So to that degree, it's a flip coin situation. It's a flip coin situation. Okay. Do you wanna say anything else? Because I wanted to juxtapose to trust.
Yeah. Eh, yeah, something came to mind actually. Uh, right down here. Yes, I wrote down. Um, there has to be a medium which acts as a bridge to the unconscious. That's the only somewhat proven way that helps man understand its force. People give it different names, but there is no way of ignoring that um, these different mediums are metric systems for the soul. some more abnormal than others, but I've been in my research, I've come to agree that the more different the method, the more clarity. But if one thing's for certain, symbology is the way that the world speaks, which is why some are kept away for a reason, because with lack of understanding and responsibility, you could invite um, knowledge that you're not ready for, which does cause episodes in people, which I think some have been named as the um, uh, some form of psychosis where one is known to spout things that people would just brush off, but without, I want to say, not proper guidance. It's just rash, raw, emotional breakdown. But um, yeah, the unconscious plays a big part in how um, your world plays out for you, and why no matter what people lives that they have, it's always interesting that the signs that they see is tailored made for them. So meaning, if a picture paints 1,000 words, it says a lot about what images people can or can't or are being blocked to see within themselves, which blocks the connection to who they really are. And um, for the depth that we are as people that are able to understand things to certain degrees, it really goes beyond logic. It's just how it is, because life can't be written on paper to the point where it goes, this is it. Like if everyone just follows this, we'll be fine. But because of how complex it is, it, the unconscious um, makes it palatable for the user or the person having the experience to, let's say, judging on how this person reacts to profound things or experiences that will usher growth for their story. It that says that um, this person will be able to understand this because of where they're at, and you just continue to go through the motions. Um, and like we mentioned before about our brilliant car analogy, is if you're too busy paying attention to other people while in the car or ignoring the road signs, you will lead into an accident. But it's not really an accident, it's just you failing to pay attention to the cause and effect, as you will. But it's a very paraphrased way, but yeah, people have been answering and giving very conclusive responses to how the unconscious works. It's just that's the case. Some people will always be louder than others, but when you start doing the math and experimenting yourself, um, you after a while, and as I've mentioned before, the term miracle is just you believing in how the process works without you being obsessed about the process. And I feel that's where the breakdown always is. Life is not meant to be obsessed over. Like no one is bigger than the program, and you can't do that. Or like you said at the beginning of the live, you can't have fun if you're constantly obsessing over details that were never meant to be obsessed, or that we are too um not we're not as big as we think we are to demand or act as if, well, I'm asking all these questions, why aren't these details being revealed to me? I might as well say, let me jump in the Hadron Collider and tell the atoms, yo, like, I want some answers. And it's like, bruv, you know what I mean? So, um, yeah.
Uh,
And I think if I can segue into your question about truth, I think that beautifully
trust,
asks,
trust.
yeah, I think that beautifully ties into that because um, if you take an action between one person and another, depending on the contract that they establish, a handshake is a
Mm,
universal sign language of we agree upon um, a healthy exchange of energy that what we agree on must be met.
yeah,
And there's no form of currency other than respect. Or it's never material when it comes to trust. It's always about can we see eye to eye on this being beneficial for the respect we have for each other to coexist. And I think you will require more of that when what it is that you're up against or what you're striving for becomes a lot more less um, materialistic in front of you, because then it's like your gut again, the largest brain. And I really like this argument that scientists raise that your your gut might actually be your real brain because that if it's the largest organ in the body and it is the most intricate system in the body,
yeah,
um, the brain is more easily hardwired to doubt, second guess, and even cause illness if you think too negatively for a certain way. But um, time and time again, those testimonies that you've heard from people, when you ignore your gut instinct, it bites you quite hard because it has less programming installed um, in it to help serve you, to protect you, and to make sure that you get the longer end of the stick. So that's my thoughts on that.
no, that's real. That's real. Um, I just want to read the Google definition.
Yes, yes.
It says trust refers to a belief in the reliability and integrity of a person or thing or a legal arrangement where one party manages assets for the benefit of another.
Mm,
You know what comes to mind when I hear stuff like that? You know, it goes back to and this is more of an American saying, typically to do with the South. They always say, or just actually more of a general thing.
mm,
The I'm sure you're familiar with the term common decency,
yeah.
which is also based on trust. You know, being as social animals as we are, you know, cohesiveness means something. It means
Mm,
perhaps even more than we care to give it credit for. To us, to be a cohesive unit, I think that's one of the things that makes us as strong as we are. If you look at certain animals that are perhaps family orientated or just social creatures like ourselves,
mm,
they tend to be more powerful. They're more dominant as a unit or dominant in reputation or their means of operations, like the wild dogs, the lions, the wolves. You know, these are animals that are social creatures, meaning they not only social creatures but they work together and they do a lot of teamwork. And also, you see, they're very, to a degree, quite dominant in their own environment. Um, of course, they're not humans, So there are somewhat limitation to only their environment where they can dominate. But I would say there's a differentiation as well, and that will be the trust. Perhaps the trust that we care to give to ourselves as well as the people around us, meaning they don't, we evolve because there's a certain evolution that takes place between us and the people around us that is somewhat revolutionary in terms of who we are and what we've been able to do and the dominance that we somewhat um, carry through this world to be who we are as human beings. Now, I'm not saying obviously there's no competition now, but at the beginning when we weren't that dominant, I would say these are factors that were somewhat, even so much more pivotal for the eclipse or the revelation of potential of what we could be if we somewhat realize what we have at our disposal in terms of like tools or skills or ability. But first, you have to trust and understand, even if it's evidence to do with evidence, you still have to trust that evidence that you're somewhat you're taking in, you're absorbing information, whether it's scientific, etc., etc. These things all point to different forms of leaps and bounds, taking risks. But there's an evolution, there's an evolving situation here. But there is no dawn sort of thing without the trust behind it. And I think that's one of the things I found so intriguing about this part of it. Very intriguing. So for me, I'm thinking about it, I'm like, trust is a form of abundance, man.
Say that again.
Trust is abundance, you know. To not trust is, of course, it's isolation, isn't it? It's limiting. It's distance. It's an island. And as we know,
Bliss, maybe.
pretty much, at least with this world's concerned,
Mm.
you're not relevant anymore. Nobody sees you, and it's currency. It's a form of currency. You have certain people, they break your trust. They could be that means they're broke in your as far as you're concerned, they're broke in terms of money can't buy that trust back because you might have money, but it's not the right currency. As my guy would say, today's price is not yesterday's price is not today's price.
I love that saying though. Speaks volumes, and it ties to when you do recognize your worth through a
Hmm.
wrongdoing or an experience to help illuminate your value, which is the self-respect. And it's funny how that you know, yeah, life is funny. When trust is broken, is it's a strong Yeah, I just wanted to add as well. It's a strong wake up call for someone to realize how much do they trust themselves, and thus you go on the route of the 7 stages of denial. There's got to be a one about the seven
Yeah.
stages of trust. I hate everyone. Never gonna trust you. Only gonna trust my friends. Only gonna trust people that do things for me. Until you get to the pinnacle of, trust people who they show me who they are.
That's a whole fact. That's a whole fact. So going back to Samuel Jackson now, I think what he said, or because of what he experienced, I think that was born because of the combination of the two. Not just hope, but I think trust, hope and trust. Now, the conclusion is not what's relevant, but to conclude, he did say he had what drunk people would call an epiphany. And he described his experience as a divine intervention. But let's unpack that. Divine intervention, but let's focus on the evidence because that's what led him to his conclusion. And what's the result of of what happens? It's hope and trust. So essentially, what I'm saying is, from either side, you have the evidence at work, and I'm reason why I'm saying that to do with the trust. I'm linking that towards more the scientific breakdown of your experience and what you can make of it in terms of perception and what you see and what you feel and what actually took place. And then you have the hope aspect, the instincts to survive. Survival instincts kicks in. And but like I said, hope, that's more linked, that's linked to the religious aspect, which is next to, which is of course the power, but also survival mechanisms that we are innate with, despite being as civilized as they like to call it. Um, and so you get to this point where the combination of the two um, takes him to this place, and ultimately it's quite euphoric. He's excited, he's high on life, he's one, and he's bringing people together. You know what I mean? Everything just seems to just be aligning around him. And not only that, I mean, of course, it's just a movie, but if you think about the domino effect afterwards,
It's not just a movie, bro.
if you think about the domino effect afterwards, if I recall, my guy got killed, didn't he? Afterwards, but he retired from the game.
Mm.
John Travolta, I'm talking about his partner. He got killed afterwards, but he retired from the game and he walked away with his life. So I guess what I'm pointing to this fact is perhaps there is a universal situation here, which points towards more the frequency aspect of things. You know, and as you mentioned before, that's in line with that as well. The instinct, the gut feeling, the meaning behind what you're experiencing, the inkling, like those senses that indicate to you that, as Thor would say, the time is nay. You know what I mean? It's just like, and so it's a combination of so many different things, but hope is not just hope, and trust is not just trust. But when you have a combination of the two, perhaps that's the semblance of divinity, that is really experienced, you know.
I believe the term is preach, brother.
Yeah,
Well,
so so
yeah,
so
well
that's where
said.
it goes.
Honestly,
Go on.
yeah. No, yeah. I just wanted to conclude. Absolutely. One without the other. Um, what's the term? Hopeless fool. Some of the sorts. Yeah, and even the term in itself, I think when one has so much assurance or abundance of trust in his journey or what it is he's striving towards for, um, the first thing people say is they can't see it, and because of that, it's easy to label to um, not see the frequency or the currency that they get in exchange between others when trying to get to where they're going. Um, I've had plenty of time in my life where, when you get along with someone really, really well out of nowhere, but other people you don't get along with. I've
Mm,
wondered that for ages,
yeah.
but usually that tends to be the case of is you have the same exchange rate as that individual, which some people don't. And because of that, the low level thing to do is to try and send that currency of, or you don't know your worth because you're not talking to me. And it's like, ye- yeah, it worked for a very long time, but you come to realize, like we say, lone wolves are lone for a reason. So when they meet others, I've said this recently as well, how you you check each other's stance before you approach, because you're like, the wounds that we've carried have taught us how to be mindful, but
Yeah.
to still be curious. But we do that in a manner that's respectful. So, um, and usually along the line, you guys click, um,
Mm,
because it's like, oh wow, look at that. Um, so yeah, that's just one of the many forms of evidence that I like to put a claim to about how um, things work. That people don't quite see the lines on how that bridge is linked. But very powerful stuff, because those same people change the trajectory of your lives.
yeah, yeah. And it's crazy, Strings, because the more I think about it, you ever hear these certain people, they go through a lot and they still continue down that road. But one day something happens and it's just, I don't know if it's if it's the avalanche of different things that they've been going through, or like the domino of different things that they've been going through. But the one thing that was different about this is probably the combination of the two that we're talking about right now, where they're not only somewhat, maybe that's what it is, the combination of the conscious and the unconscious, where it's just like, stop. Do you get what I mean? Where it's just, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So they're forced to do something, or they're forced to make a change, because you're not only feeling the difference, but you can see the evidence to
Yeah.
indicate that, yeah, I'm on the verge of somewhat self-destructive
Mm.
situation. And if I don't stop here, stop now, um, yeah, the odds are,
Yeah, show's over. Yeah.
we got a problem.
Mm.
It's sort of kind of, DEFCON 5 kind of thing, because the results are going to be tumultuous.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I think about this situation, and a lot of times it's just, yes, we can bring up movies, but it's so common where it's not, it's common to the point where it's rare, but to the point, but it happens so much to the point where it's common, but it's not seen frequently. It's just, it happens so much that it's almost common. You see somebody in a situation where they one of them type of people that never make trouble, or just one of the most quiet person on road. But this one time, they just seem to just have had enough, and they go on a rampage, but a justful rampage, something that is worth their effort, or they think is, I couldn't let it go anymore. Now, of course, we can point to, oh man, an implosive personality, etc., etc. But this person was born implosive, and he could have found another way out. Yet he chose this occasion to crash out. Do you get what I mean? So yeah, man. There's something there's something about, the combination of hope and trust, or what's born because of
It's
that.
21 hours.
Perhaps that's the oh, that's a malato. Perhaps that's the situation that is pointed towards success. When they say define success, or how to sort of kind of ascend to success. Well, first you have to hope, then you have to evidence of a map of how to get there. But first you have to believe, and you know to believe, you have to hope first before you can believe. So there's levels to this, I suppose. Right, Strings. Any thoughts before we jet?
Um, Greatness. Make your own recipe.
Mm, that's a whole fact. But make it a good one
Can't
too.
wait to repost this one.
All your beans out, your patties. You know what I mean? Have yourself a good meal.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And if I have to say anything, it's just live your life, man. Live your life and enjoy it. regardless of what's going on. Obstacles are there to be, for you to learn.
Mm.
But once you've learned your lesson, move on and live your life.
Yeah, man. I think that's the hardest thing for people to do, move on, depending on the obstacle. Some more
Mm.
oblivious than others, but yeah, you doing that is freeing, more freeing than the freedom that people pray for.
It's liberation, man.
Mm.
It's liberation. Right, everyone. Thanks so much for chiming through. Strings, thanks for coming through.
Likewise, man. Appreciate it.
This is fun, man. And all right, everyone. Until next time. If you have any thoughts on what we've been talking about, absolutely share what you have to say, and we'll be back. We'll be back. Take care. Next time.
Peace.